For our next talk, we have Ben Weiß, who is going to be talking about the Substrate Builders Program, where ideas become blockchains. Ben?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you very much for everybody being around. I'm Ben from the Ecosystem Success team at Parity, and I want to walk you through the Builders Program today and what it is about, what the current status is, and what to expect going forward. So let's start out. What is the Builders project actually about? The Builders project initially got established with the goal of empowering external high leverage development teams to build out the best in place blockchains in the space. And surely it was a focus on Substrate and being successful in the Polkadot ecosystem. And that's the whole goal of the Substrate Builders Program. So looking back on how the Builders Program actually got established. So it got launched, or the initial launch happened in December 2019 with an initial track we separate teams in different tracks as they need different support initiatives, but it started us with a chains track. The chains track really focusing on teams building chains, parachains, solo chains, any chain based on Substrate. And we're aiming giving them the right support, the technical support for sure from Parity side to be successful. We shortly got aware that there is something more needed. And this was the establishment of the infrastructure track. The infrastructure track then aimed for teams, or is aiming for teams who are building infrastructure tooling in the context of Substrate, like making it easier to develop a chain with Substrate, deploying the chain, maintaining it going forward, and giving access to that Substrate chain. And after the first chains got built and the first parachains came available, we established the application track. The application track is a support initiative that aims for teams aiming to deploy on a parachain. But with the establishment of the parachains and their own communities, we figured out that we need something more. And something more was literally the establishment of the Builders for Builders program. The Builders for Builders program is a way that we help parachain teams establish their own community and share our knowledge that we gathered through running the Builders program back at the time for over a year, and help them to help their teams getting deployed on their parachain. And this was October 2020. But then beginning of this year, mid this year, we saw with the parachains actually coming to life and getting ready to connect to the relay chain, that we need something like a launch support. And the launch support is aiming to help teams to get this knowledge that Parity has created while launching a couple of chains, and making sure the teams actually know how to do, say, DevOps right, how to ensure that these parachains are actually available, that they're running, that they're well prepared, that they are launching in a successful way. So now going into the Builders program itself, what is actually part of the Builders program? So the Builders program is established in 4 different phases. So it's the evaluation phase, it's the building phase, it's the launch support, and the long-term coordination support. If we look at these phases in themselves, they're actually established in different pathways. So we have the application in the first step. That's literally the application where a team goes into and fills out the form and gives us some information about their project. And there's one minimal requirement. It's a POC MVP level, so proof of concept, minimal viable product level. So a team needs to have built something and in the vision of their project. And then we invite them into an intro call. We get more knowledge about their project, and we estimate if it is worth to go into the pitch call. And the pitch call is the last call for a team in the application phase. This is when a team actually has the chance to convince us to give us all the support. And there's a Substrate Builders Program committee that is composed of people from the Web3 Foundation and from Parity, who would then evaluate the team and ensure that the team is valuable to give all the support that we are actually deploying on the team on the Builders program. So if we're looking then, if a team gets accepted and the team goes into the building phase, it's really about hacking and building. So hacking and building in the sense of different milestones which have a different focus. So the milestones are separated in 3 different milestones, which are over 9 months and lasting for 3 months every milestone. And the first milestone is then building up on the POC and MVP on their initial build and their initial idea, and making sure they establish a proper roadmap, a technical roadmap, to be able to execute on their ideas. And all of these, like in the building phase, all of the building phase, we have different support initiatives. So we have for sure technical support, we have marketing and communication support, business support. So we say like, is the business a viable product? Does it actually make sense? And this is always like, all these initiatives or these support initiatives are available for anybody in the ecosystem on a demand basis. But in the Builders program, we package them together so we can apply them in a very structured way. And then if we're looking at the milestone 2, it's really about building out the first features, building these idea and building this roadmap out, and ensuring that is like lined out on a good way to build the product. And the last milestone, milestone 3, is getting ready to connect as a parachain. So connecting as a parachain means literally testing everything, ensuring the parachain is production ready, it's possible to connect. And with the milestone 3 getting reached by teams, we are entering the launch support. And launch support is then going into connecting as a parachain testnet, making sure that runtime upgrades have happened and tested before, and have like security reviews lined out and code audits sort of scheduled. So when it comes to a team wanting to connect as a parachain, going to Kusama, going to Polkadot, it's really to ensure that the code is like audited, that there is like security reviews, and ensuring the best practices in the ecosystem to have like a mature as possible project. If we're looking at the stats in the Builders program, so generally, since we are running the program almost for 2 years now, we have had like over 320 applications so far. And we were able to accept around 56, 58 teams in the Builders program. And with these teams looking at the different tracks, we have around 48 teams connected, building a chain, building a substrate-based chains, around 10 teams building an infrastructure product, and around 4 teams building a dApp, like an application that is aiming to get deployed on a parachain. The 4 teams is a little bit low on the application side, but it makes sure because like most of the teams are actually entering the Builders for Builders program, where they connect directly with a parachain community or parachain project or a parachain team in the end of the day. So for the application track, we're actually more in the coordination phase and making sure that they have the right coordination and connections. But if they are building on to deploy on a parachain, then they usually go into the Builders for Builders and connect with the parachain team themselves. And if we're looking at the stages where they are right now, we have around in the early phase accepted in 21 coming up into the stream. And the whole stages is for us a way to look at, have a continuous stream of new projects and new teams building in the ecosystem and making sure that they successfully launch a product at the end of the day. So milestone 3, if we look at the milestone 3 and the launch support, we have around 20 teams. And there are definitely like the 10 parachain teams that are currently connected to Kusama. So this means that the support that we're offering seems to be very successful and very helpful for these teams. So if we're going forward on the projection and what we're looking for forward, the parachain readiness projection that we're doing. So in this graph, we're showing, it shows like the number of parachain teams ready to connect to like being at the level that they actually have a readiness to connect. So the parachain team and their code that they develop would be ready to connect as a relay chain, and projecting this over the time frame. So we have this pink graphs are the actually values, and then the two in green, the 2 trend lines. So the upper one is the best case prediction and the lower one is the worst case prediction. And that's something that we're looking into the project and seeing like how many teams are in the ecosystem and how many teams do we think are ready at what time point. And this is like gives us a feeling on how much support the relay chain when it comes to performance and slot auction, slots being available, need to be out there. And just to give a context, these are only the teams in the Builders program. So for sure, there are more teams out in the ecosystem and more teams building parachains based on Substrate. But these projections based on what was the teams that we see in the Builders program, and where we highly connect and engage with them. And that's sort of like how we projected forward what will happen in the future. So what is happening? What is to expect going forward? For sure, we will double down on the Builders for Builders. Now, parachains being live, being usable, coming live, going into the Polkadot, aiming for the Polkadot connection, we will help a lot more parachain teams to get more adoption and get more connection into these parachain teams, and make sure that we train the parachain teams with a lot more about what we have learned in the Builders program and help them to build out their product. The second one is security first. So security first means that the parachain teams or the chain teams that we have in the Builders program have done their, or well prepared for the security reviews, have done initial reviews and know how audits are actually working and what they need to look into, and have also like scheduled their sort of like final production ready audit ahead of time, so they have access to the audit at the time they're going to go to production and going live. At the same time, it also has like this component that we need to ensure that enough audit companies are in the ecosystem and that teams have access to enough audit companies which are able to audit Rust and Substrate code. And the last one is SubConnect. It's a very new initiative that we recently launched. Like, while seeing what the teams, like all these applications to the Builders program, and having like with this vast amount of support that we offer to the Builders program, with like all the technical support, being just able to support the 55 teams, currently we figured out that we need some sort of like scaling the resources up. So in general, the ecosystem of Substrate and Polkadot has like a ton of initiatives, like Björn just mentioned a couple of them, where teams at a certain stage can actually access the different initiative, and like we talk about grants and accelerate the hackathon, but it's very hard for a lot of teams to coordinate through the space of initiatives and help. And we want to help these teams to apply for the right initiative at the right time and go and help them to coordinate through the ecosystem to be, at the end of the day, a successful team that deploys a product in the ecosystem and utilizes all this help in the wider sense. And with that said, I would say thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to connect to all of you and engage. And I will actually move over to the Discord and answer more questions on that.
All right, thank you very much, Ben. We had a couple of questions. First, could you reiterate who to contact if you're interested in the Builders program?
Yeah, it's
either directly.
Either connect me directly, or if you go on the Substrate IO link where the Substrate Builders program is explained, there's a couple of links on how to reach out to us and what is the best connection. And I'm for sure I'm in the Discord channel right now, so feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Okay. And a few other questions. So you mentioned, not everyone gets into the Substrate Builders program. So could you give some ideas on what would help people either get accepted, or conversely, what to avoid to make sure they're not rejected?
Yeah. So as said, the minimum requirement is that you have this least level of development, that you have developed something with Substrate. We call it POC, proof of concept, MVP level. So there is some code in a repo that you can share with us and we can look at it. This is like sort of the minimum requirement. And the second one is have a good outlined milestone, like roadmap on how you want to execute, that we can evaluate on if that makes sense in the context of what you have built so far. And we will help you with the milestones a lot. So rather, if you have built something on Substrate and there is code available, then rather apply for it and we will help you to set up the milestones. But this milestones is really the minimal requirement that we have for those programs.
Okay, so yeah, it's not like a class where you're looking for problems, but you will help people like to develop these milestones and help them to get understand what they need in order to get accepted.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like in the intro call, we will give you advice on. We talk with you about what is the project actually about, and then we give you advice on how you should set up your milestone, what we think that should be done, like roadmap wise and development wise. And this is like the input then for the pitch call. And the pitch call is like, okay, you have built everything out, you have like lined out how you develop, and then convince us that this is valuable and you are capable of executing on it.
Okay. All right. One last question, and then I will let you get to the Discord chat. Does the Substrate Builders Program also provide support for substrate projects which may not plan on being parachains? They want to be a solo chain or something different, or is it just for Polkadot and Kusama network projects?
Oh yes. No, it's completely open for anybody who is building something with Substrate or in the context of Substrate. So even if you build a solo chain, we will help you. If you build like infrastructure tooling to make it easy to deploy Substrate chains or wallets or anything like that, we will help you. So in general, one could say everything that is enabling or helping to enable teams building with Substrate.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ben, for a really interesting talk. So hopefully this has given some ideas to people out there in the audience that would like to join the Substrate Builders Program.